Civilian journalist He Linhua accidentally obtained a space in the game that can obtain spiritual power by refining souls. What's even more incredible is that this space can still be upgraded. As the spatial level increases, various novel buildings can also be built. Where else in this world is more beautiful than this? What? Do you want the ultimate spiritual talisman? Trade ghosts for it. What? Do you want top quality pills? We still have to exchange ghosts. What? Do you want a top-notch artifact? That requires a lot of ghosts. What? Do you want a top-notch beauty? Get lost, keep going, I'm not enough myself. Let's see the beautiful life of He Linhua after obtaining the mysterious space. Starting from April 3rd, update daily with over 10,000 words. Book Friend Group, QQ Book Friend Group, 421657886, come in and chat. Keywords of the novel. No pop-up window for Refining Ghosts and Cultivating Immortals, complete collection download of Refining Ghosts and Cultivating Immortals TXT, latest chapter reading of Refining Ghosts and Cultivating Immortals. Chapter 1. Temporary Workers. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Snow is like flying catkins, landing silently. Nyowen reads novels, entering the gate of the 12th lunar month, the smell of winter is getting stronger and stronger. A not very heavy snowfall has been falling intermittently for 3 days, and the snow has also passed over the soles of the feet. At 11 o'clock in the morning, He Linhua sat bored in the office, squinting at the web game on the computer screen and casually clicking. I really don't understand why I agreed to be this damn journalist here back then. He Linhua is a graduate of Hebei Provincial Public Security Normal University. Although he is studying at a normal university, He Linhua is not majoring in normal education, but in journalism. After graduating from university, He Linhua gave up his career as a journalist and returned to his hometown of Huanglin City. He became an otaku at home and became a professional writer, living a relatively comfortable life in his childhood. However, within a few months, He Linhua's good days were ruined by his parents. His father and mother, citing being at home without success, asked He Linhua's uncle to help him find a job as a journalist. He Linhua's uncle works in the public security county of the public security city, and most of his connections are also in the public security county. Therefore, He Linhua's job landed in the public security county. So, 3 months after leaving the security city, He Linhua returned to the security city again and went to the security county, becoming a temporary worker at the security county news center. The Public Security County News Center is directly managed by the Public Security County Committee, and the salary and benefits are quite good. He Linhua's uncle really put a lot of effort into finding this job for him. In order not to worry his parents and not to disappoint his uncle's kindness, He Linhua worked honestly at the news center. In the blink of an eye, 2 months passed. There were not many personnel in the news center originally. As soon as He Linhua entered the news center, he was entrusted with important tasks and followed the senior colleagues of the unit to complete tasks every day. After 2 months of training, He Linhua gradually adapted to the pace of life as a journalist and began to independently accept interview tasks. Journalists have the troubles of journalists. When news points or clues appear, it is necessary to take immediate action at any time to carry out interviews. Once there are no news points or clues, journalists have to go out and search for news on their own. Of course, for a lazy person like He Linhua, searching for news clues is simply a myth. As long as he hasn't been assigned an interview task, He Linhua usually stays in the office, playing games online, reading novels, and waiting to finish work. After playing the game for a while, it was already 11:30. He Linhua stood up and glanced around. Due to 3 consecutive days of snow, the county leaders also curled up and hibernated, without any activities. There were basically no interview tasks in the county, and all 5 members of the press department sat in the office without going out. The director of the press department, Lu Junwei, sat in front of the computer playing games, the oldest qualified Qin Xiong sat reading newspapers, and the other 3 people were fighting against landlords at the corner table. He Linhua pursed his lips and stood by the window, looking at the falling snowflakes. He stretched lazily and said, "This snow will continue to fall for a few more days." Lu Junwei casually clicked the mouse and casually said, "I don't know." Qin Xiong coughed lightly and pushed his eyes. The other 3 people seemed to have not heard at all, playing cards on their own. Although ignored by others, He Linhua didn't care. He had already figured out the virtues of these people in the news center not long after they arrived. It's normal for them to not talk to him. If someone takes over, it's probably not a good thing. He Linhua shook his head and sat in front of the computer again. It's 11:35, retreat home in 5 minutes, He Linhua thought to himself and continued playing the web game he had been playing. Although the news center was a new department that emerged from institutional reform a few years ago, it was also a legitimate government agency, so everyone was given a dedicated computer to write articles and save photos. However, although computers are for personal use, if the disciplinary inspection and supervision organs discover that they have downloaded online games, small games, and so on, they will be unable to bear it. So, when He Linhua is at work, he usually only dares to play web games. Convenient, interesting, and without worrying about being discovered. The game played by He Linhua is a cultivation game called Free Cultivation. This game has innovated in gameplay, content, and other aspects, allowing players to design and play completely according to their own wishes. In this game, He Linhua is a so-called hidden profession. An alchemist. The so-called alchemist is a profession that can refine various items in the game. According to the items that can be refined, alchemists can also be subdivided into alchemists, and so on. He Linhua's game character tends to refine monster souls and is a soul-refining master. In the game, He Linhua can refine his soul and obtain spiritual power, money, experience, pills, weapons, and more from it. Someone wants to ask, if that's the case, wouldn't He Linhua, a hidden profession, be invincible in the game? The answer is certainly negative. Because hidden professions like He Linhua are ubiquitous in the game, click to enter the soul-refining space, and He Linhua looks at the soul-refining temple in the center of the screen. After 5 minutes of energy absorption, the soul power value in the soul-refining temple has reached 50, which is just enough to refine a pill. At present, He Linhua extracted 50 soul power points from the soul-refining temple, inputted them into the spirit pill transformation tower, and chose to convert advanced pills. The success rate of converting 50 soul power points into advanced pills is 20%. Are you sure you want to convert it? He Linhua didn't even look at the reminder on the screen and simply clicked OK. Please wait, the pill conversion is in progress. With a loud bang, the door of the press office was knocked open, and a figure appeared at the door. He Linhua looked up and saw the office director Chi Fenglin standing at the door. The rest of the press department also looked up and found that it was Chi Fenglin. They all lowered their heads very tacitly, each doing their own thing. Chi Fenglin has long been accustomed to the situation of the press department. Without a word, he quickly walked up to Lu Junwei and placed a note in his hand on his desk. He casually said, "At 1 p.m. this afternoon, a journalist will be sent to the county committee office to wait. Vice Mayor Su Wenliang will go to the city god to inspect, accompanied by County Secretary Ping, Chairman Zhu, Director Zhang, and County Mayor Feng." In Kaifenglan dialect, Secretary Ping is the county party secretary and county magistrate Ping Shanhu, chairman of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference Zhu Huaid, standing committee member and director of the county party committee office Zhang Changyan, and deputy county magistrate Feng Erhua in charge of cultural tourism. Lu Junwei picked up the note on the table and said with a fake smile, "You said it's snowing heavily. Su Wenliang doesn't sleep at home with his mistress in his arms. Why are you strolling around in Pinyin County?" Chi Fenglin didn't speak at all and turned around to say, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the county party committee office has arranged it quickly. Don't forget it. As soon as Chief Fenglin left, He Linhua immediately picked up the water cup on the table and pretended to drink water. It's not a good thing to go to the countryside with such heavy snow, or to follow the top leader in the county. However, in the entire press department, only He Linhua is young and inexperienced. Such useless tasks are usually completed by newcomers, Xiao He. Lu Junwei gasped for breath as he spoke. You can follow and take a look this afternoon. The city god is a good place, you can follow and take a look, offering incense to ensure that you have good luck next year. He Linhua responded in a low voice, muttering to himself, what a damn good place. I've been to it 3 times in 2 months, and I haven't seen any luck with it. After Lu Junwei finished speaking, he found a piece of paper in his notebook and patted his forehead, saying, I almost forgot. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, there will be a summary meeting in the conference room on the 6th floor of the county hotel. Let's see who will go. The 3 people playing cards still looked like extraordinary experts, not saying a word. Qin Xiong, who was reading the newspaper, reached out his hand and pushed his eyes, saying, let Xiao He go. The press department has young people, so we should let them exercise more. As old bones, let's not take credit for young people. Pop. He Linhua, who was drinking water, tilted his head and spat out all the water on the table. He cursed in his heart, forge your sister. 2 missions in the afternoon, you think I'm Superman. Lu Junwei still had a fake smile on his face and said, Old Qin, why do you still want to go with the city god? I don't know if you can make it back in the afternoon. He Linhua nodded in his heart and said, that's it. However, he dare not speak casually. If he says something wrong, he will have bad luck in the future. So, if Xiaohe can make it back before 5 p.m., let him go. If he can't make it back, Xiaohe will give me a call and I will send someone. Lu Junwei still had a smiling face, but it was extremely evil in He Linhua's eyes. Your sister. There's a litter of livestock sitting in the office, leaving me running around alone. He Linhua looked down on Lu Junwei, a smiling tiger, in his heart, and quickly got up, picked up the dishcloth from the window, and wiped the water on the table bit by bit. After wiping the table clean, He Linhua picked up the mouse again. However, as soon as He Linhua picked up the mouse, he immediately felt a current flowing from the mouse onto his body, as if it had grown legs. Starting from He Linhua's left hand, the current gradually spread throughout his body. 2 seconds later, He Linhua was startled and quickly threw the mouse onto the table. Asterisk asterisk asterisk, what kind of garbage product is this mouse? It still leaks electricity. The mouse hit the table with a soft bang, and Lu Junwei and Qin Xiong turned their heads to look at him. He Linhua placed the cloth aside, shook the mouse twice, and looked at the screen. The mouse was still spinning very flexibly, but the web page of Free Cultivation on the desktop was blank. Can't it be a crash? He Linhua was surprised and pressed the computer's shutdown button. At the same time, a dizziness appeared above He Linhua's head. Can't it be that I stayed up too late last night? I need to go to bed early tonight. He Linhua reached out and pressed his temple hard twice, feeling a little clearer. Turning his head to look at the computer, He Linhua stood up and said, Director Lu, I'm going back now. Oh. Yes, you go back first. Take a break and go to the county committee office by yourself at 1 p.m. in the afternoon, remember to bring your camera. Lu Junwei smiled and looked concerned. However, Lu Junwei's smile was indeed particularly ugly and false in the eyes of He Linhua. Well, I got it. He Linhua took out a camera from the cabinet and said goodbye to everyone before leaving the office. Chapter 2. Ghost Refining Temple. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Blowing the cold wind and facing the flying snow, although his face was icy cold, He Linhua's head was still a pile of paste. No one reads novels, what's wrong with this? Could it be that the pistol shooting posture was wrong last night, which is why I had a headache? He Linhua thought to himself. After coming out of the unit, He Linhua casually found a place to eat and it was almost 12:30. Without time to think of anything else, He Linhua walked towards the county committee. Feeling dizzy, he entered the county party committee building and arrived at the county party committee office. He Linhua then saw two current affairs reporters from the TV station, Chen Tong and Wei Na. The management of television stations is not as chaotic as the management of news centers, but rather a detailed classification of each branch. Chen Tong and Wei Na belong to the political news group, mainly responsible for the activities of the county's main leaders. Although He Linhua doesn't work for long hours, he is very skilled in handling interpersonal relationships, and more than 20 TV reporters have become familiar with him. After greeting Chen Tong and Wei Na, He Linhua sat down. As soon as He Linhua sat down, he felt as if countless currents were constantly surging out of his body, rushing towards He Linhua's brain together. At the same time, He Linhua's body reflexively shook, and his strength seemed to disappear without a trace in an instant. Sweat also flowed out continuously, and he collapsed on the sofa. With a sudden glance, He Linhua felt as if he was soaking in water. "Hey buddy, what did you do this afternoon? You're sweating all over." Chen Tong said with a, "I understand," expression, "You must have done a lot of physical work." "Everyone understands." "Understood. Understood your sister." He Linhua cursed in his heart, but he didn't even have the strength to speak. Chen Tong didn't see what was going on, but Wei Na noticed something was wrong. She looked curiously at He Linhua and asked, "Linhua, are you sweating all over? Are you feeling unwell?" He Linhua still looked helplessly at Wei Na, trying hard to speak, but only made two sounds. "Damn it. Am I supposed to be paralyzed?" Every part of his body couldn't move, and this phenomenon made He Linhua feel particularly painful and fearful. "Hello, hello." Chen Tong pushed He Linhua twice. "Linhua, are you going crazy? Do you need me to help you call 120? If so, just blink your eyes." He Linhua gave Chen Tong a helpless glance. "Who could have gone crazy like this? Oh, you still roll your eyes. You must be fine, buddy. How could you have the strength to roll your eyes, right?" Chen Tong looked like a dead pig not afraid of boiling water, constantly teasing He Linhua. Wei Na looked at He Linhua's appearance and couldn't quite match it. She also suggested, "Let's hit 120. People with epilepsy roll their eyes when they get sick." Just as the two were fiercely discussing He Linhua's condition, a very untimely sound appeared. Chen Tong and Wei Na both turned their gaze to the source of the sound. He Linhua's belly. "What? What's going on? I had dinner just now." He Linhua became increasingly confused about his current situation. "Why is your stomach still hungry even after just having a meal? Speaking of which, buddy, shouldn't you be so hungry? Did you go on a business without lunch?" Chen Tong's brain color was quite unique, and his face still had a, "I understand," expression. "Hey buddy, although exercising after eating is not good for your body, exercising without eating is even worse for your body. This time, we need to learn a lesson and remember that if time is tight next time, we should eat first and exercise later. The body is the capital of revolution." Chen Tong finished the call, patted his head again, and then reached into his clothes pocket to dig and finally pulled out something. He Linhua fixed his eyes on it and saw that it was a piece of chocolate. But what are the colorful particles and hair surrounding that piece of chocolate? Chen Tong looked at the chocolate in his hand and didn't feel anything was wrong. He cleaned up all the larger particles and fur on top, then opened He Linhua's mouth and stuffed it into He Linhua's mouth, saying, "Linhua, I don't have anything else to eat here right now, just a piece of chocolate. I'll give it to you. You don't need to thank me." "Thank you, sister." He Linhua now doesn't even have the strength to open his mouth, so he can only let Chen Tong tinker here. After about 5 minutes, the chocolate in He Linhua's mouth had completely melted and he swallowed it with his saliva. He Linhua himself gradually regained consciousness. At the same time, He Linhua also felt very strange that something seemed to be added to the center of his eyebrows. Although he regained consciousness, He Linhua still didn't have much strength. He reached out and took out his phone, and answered Lu Junwei's call. "Is it Xiaohe? What's up?" Lu Junwei's voice was approachable. He Linhua took a breath and weakly said, "Director Lu, I'm not feeling well. Can we reschedule the 2 interview tasks for this afternoon?" Lu Junwei laughed heartily and asked with concern, "Are you feeling unwell? Where are you now?" "In the county committee office," He Linhua answered honestly. Lu Junwei said, "Xiao He, it's already 12:55 now, and it's too late to change people. You just need to persevere today. Young people, you must have a strong determination not to give up. Just give it a push and it's over." After Lu Junwei finished speaking, he didn't give He Linhua a chance to explain and hung up the phone. I'm damn it. He Linhua couldn't help but curse again. "Hey, you guys need to prepare a bit. We're getting on the bus," the noon duty officer from the county party committee reminded. "Oh, I got it, bro. We'll be going out right away," Chen Tong stood up and said with a nod and a bow. He stumbled onto the county committee bus and walked to the last row, lying back in his chair. In a daze, He Linhua felt his eyelids getting heavier and heavier, so he fell asleep like this in his dream. He Linhua entered a passage shrouded in smoke. Walking through the passage, He Linhua appeared in a huge space. He Linhua looked around and saw a huge cone-shaped building in front of him. This building rises in the air, standing on a floating island surrounded by smoke, as if it were real or illusory. The building is about 100 zhang high, with a bottom length and width of about 10 meters square, extending upwards in an inverted cone shape. With the eyesight of He Linhua, the top cannot be seen at all. While He Linhua was pondering what this building was, a black floating cloud appeared at his feet, carrying him to the floating island. Looking back at the building in front of him from the island, He Linhua saw it even clearer. The building in front of him stood like a Buddha pavilion, full of a sense of oppression. The building is divided into about 100 floors, each of which is 1 zhang higher. The first floor of the building has already been opened, and the side facing He Linhua is empty, but there are 9 statues inside the building. Statues have different colors and appearances, some are elegant, some are ugly, and their forms are diverse. 7 of them are slightly solid, while the other 2 are in the same shape as virtual shadows. The statue in the middle is a middle-aged man dressed in a black and blue Taoist robe. The middle-aged man looks straight at He Linhua, and from the 2 eyes of the statue, He Linhua even faintly saw something else. Suddenly, the positions of the 9 statues suddenly changed, and the 4 characters Soul Refining Temple appeared out of nowhere in front of He Linhua. The Spirit Refining Temple. What is this? He Linhua pondered for a moment, but couldn't figure out anything. Ding! Reminder. At this stage, spiritual power and yin spiritual power can be used. Currently, there are 1 yin, yang, and 5 elements spiritual power each, and 1 yin spiritual power can be extracted. Yang and 5 elements spiritual power cannot be extracted. May I ask if they should be extracted? A sudden sound appeared in He Linhua's ear, shaking him to the core. This even hallucinations can occur in dreams. Although He Linhua didn't believe it in his heart, he still chose to extract with a hint of fantasy. The blue middle-aged man statue in front of me suddenly turned into a phantom, and a drop of black and blue liquid quickly flew into He Linhua's eyebrows. Meanwhile, He Linhua felt like he had been injected with a stimulant. Later, He Linhua felt suddenly plunged into endless void, and the floating island and soul refining temple, like the black and blue liquid, shot into He Linhua's eyebrows. Wake up! Wake up! Wake up quickly! The city god is almost here. His body was gently pushed and a soft cry came from his ear. He Linhua finally woke up from his sleep. After waking up from his sleep, He Linhua's spirit also improved a lot. His previously dull expression was swept away, and he still remembered the situation in his dream deeply. However, the clothes soaked in sweat on his body made him feel particularly uncomfortable. What's going on today? I always feel like I've had a good vacation. Am I still dreaming now? He Linhua shook his head in a daze. I touched my stomach, but I didn't feel very hungry. So why was my stomach still making noise just now? It looks like he's in good spirits now. Sleeping can cure all kinds of illnesses. The saying passed down by our ancestors is truly a wise saying. Chen Tong muttered softly as he looked at He Linhua's expression. He Linhua rolled his eyes as he listened. Can sleep cure all kinds of diseases? Is it still passed down from our ancestors? Whose ancestor said this damn thing? Thinking of everything in his dream, He Linhua couldn't help but reach out and wipe his forehead. This touch didn't matter, but He Linhua felt that there really seemed to be something extra on his forehead. What is it? Could it be the soul refining temple I saw in my dream? Or that black and blue liquid drop? The more suspicious he was, the more He Linhua felt that there was something there. Chen Tong, do you see anything here? He Linhua pointed to his forehead and asked. Chen Tong glanced casually and said, No. No. I think there really is something. Take a look, He Linhua asked with uncertainty. This time, Chen Tong stared at He Linhua's eyebrows for a while and said, It seems like. There really is something. Is that right? What is it? He Linhua asked after him. It's a chocolate. Chocolate. Bah. Brother, you also believe this. You think that if you eat a piece of chocolate, there will be a piece of chocolate on your forehead. If you eat a salted duck egg, do you want to become a salted egg Superman? Linhua, be realistic, the city god will soon arrive. When you arrive at the Chenghuang temple, you should take a picture carefully, and don't think about your forehead anymore. Chen Tongyi called, and pulled He Linhua back to reality. Yes, today I came to the countryside with him. We need to prepare quickly. He Linhua took out the camera from his bag, adjusted it slightly, and then waited to get off the car. Chapter 3. City God. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The Chenghuang Temple in Pinyin County is located on the Tianzi Ridge, and was built in the Eastern Han Dynasty. Niuwen reads a novel, it has been rebuilt many times over the years, and the existing buildings are relics of the Ming and Qing dynasties. The city god temple faces south, and there are more than 50 ancient buildings, such as the main hall, the Jiadian Hall, the Bell Tower, the Drum Tower, and the Langfang. Ping Shan Tiger, the secretary of the Pinyin County Party Committee and the head of the county, and Su Wenliang walked up the stone stairs in front of the main gate of the Chenghuang temple step by step, and introduced the city god to Su Wenliang. There are 108 stone steps at the bottom of the Chenghuang temple. There is a rest platform between the stone steps, called Ninggu Gate, which means to gather the essence of ancient times. There are 36 stone steps at the top of Ninggu Gate, and 72 stone steps at the bottom of Ninggu Gate, which means heaven, gang and earth. It is said that as long as you come here sincerely, you must kowtow to this door step by step, but if you want something, the city god will surely answer. Zhang Changyan stood at the other side of Pingshan Tiger and took the time to explain. Although there is still light snow floating in the sky, there is not much snow on the stone steps, indicating that someone has already cleaned them up. He Linhua trotted all the way to the front gate of the Chenghuang temple, waiting for the leaders to come up. The work of news centers is completely different from that of television stations. Television stations require edited images, while news centers only require a few pictures and a paragraph of text. Moreover, compared to other news, political news has more rules to follow, and many articles are consistent in nature. As long as the overall direction is grasped, there is basically no problem. So, compared to television stations, the work of news centers is easier. It is said that when Wang Mang usurped the throne and chased Lu Xiu to Tianzi Mountain, Lu Xiu was unable to escape any more and ran to the dilapidated mountain god temple. At that time, the gate of the mountain god temple was completely covered by a big spider web. Lu Xiu rushed in panic, and the spider web was pierced with a big hole. When he entered the temple, he saw the spider web was broken. He knelt down to the altar and prayed, "God of the mountain, if you can heal the spider web and save your life, Lu Shizhong will climb the dragon throne one day, and will make you the city god of the world." After saying that, the spider web had already closed, and the door was more and more tightly covered. Soon, Wang Mang led his men and horses to come. Lu Xiu was nowhere to be seen and the spider web covered the door, so he hurried to chase them away. Later, Lu Xiu ascended the throne and sealed this place as the city god of the world. This is the origin of the city god of Pinyin County. Pingshan Tiger told the legend of the city god all the way. At the end of the day, if it is true, only two Qinghuang Temple can be called the city god of the world. One is in Kyoto, and the other is in public security. The city god in Kyoto is the capital of the world because of Kyoto. The capital city god of an county is called the city god capital because it is the capital of the world. To be honest, the capital god of an county is the most authentic. Haha, so the Qinghuang Temple in Pinyin County is the center of all the Qinghuang Temple in the world. Su Wenliang joked after hearing the words of Pingshan Tiger. Pingshan Tiger can achieve the level of shoulder-to-shoulder responsibility as the county party secretary and county mayor, and its mind is naturally not weak. Su Wenliang had something to say, and he could naturally hear it. However, as a smart person, Ping Shanhu didn't say much, but immediately changed the topic. He pointed to the nearby mountain gate and said, according to legend, the 5 characters city god of the world on the banner were personally written by Emperor Guangwu Lu Xiu and have a history of 2,000 years. Although this plaque has now been replaced with a Qing Dynasty one, the characters are completely the original version of Tuo's signboard. Su Wenliang nodded without speaking. Following the steps of Pingshan Tiger, Su Wenliang entered the Qinghuang Temple, listened to the introduction of Pingshan Tiger all the way, and occasionally interrupted to comment. It is only 50 or 60 meters from the mountain gate to the main hall. Su Wenliang, Ping Shanhu and other leaders entered the main hall of the Qinghuang Temple, and He Linhua followed them. After entering the main hall, He Linhua first stood in the corner, crossed the camera on his shoulder, and took out a notebook in his hand to organize what Su Wenliang and Ping Shanhu had just said. After organizing, He Linhua looked disdainfully at Su Wenliang and others kneeling in front of the statue, muttering to himself, the larger these officials are, the more immoral they will do, and the more gods they will worship. Thinking in his heart, He Linhua turned his gaze to the statue of the city god again. The city god sat upright in the center of the main hall, holding a what in his hand, with 2 young boys separated on either side. However, further up the statue, He Linhua couldn't see it clearly. The upper body of the city god seems to be shrouded in a mist, hazy and invisible. Discovering residual souls that can be refined. Should they be absorbed? Suddenly, a mechanical voice appeared in He Linhua's mind. He Linhua was stunned for a moment, then shook his head hard and muttered, "What's going on today?" There's such an inexplicable sound in his mind. DD system prompt. A total of 3,349 residual souls have been found. After refining, they can obtain 335 yin spiritual power, 33 yang spiritual power, 58 gold spiritual power, 68 wood spiritual power, 100 water spiritual power, 70 fire spiritual power, 30 earth spiritual power, 1 merit point, and 3 karma points. May I ask if they have been absorbed? The voice appeared again, interrupting He Linhua's contemplation. At the same time, a flash of inspiration flashed in He Linhua's mind, and he also remembered the dream just now. In the dream, it seemed to be related to what was happening now. Is the dream I just had real? He Linhua was puzzled in his heart, but a voice appeared again in his mind. Didi, the system prompts that if you don't choose to absorb it for 10 seconds, automatic conversion mode will be activated. Upon hearing this sound, He Linhua became even more surprised and said, "System prompt. How could it be like playing a game?" Wait. Game. Thinking of the game, He Linhua remembered what happened in the morning and noon, and then thought about this eerie day. He Linhua couldn't help but be stunned. Is it, Linhua, why are you so stunned? The leaders have all gone out. Feeling someone pushing him twice, He Linhua woke up from his contemplation. After looking at the speaker, it was Wei Na. Wei Na pointed out the door and said, "Hurry up and get out. The leader is currently offering incense. Maybe they want you to take photos." He Linhua responded and quickly left the main hall gate. As soon as he walked out the door, he heard Zhang Changyan, the director of the county party committee office, greeting him. "Where is the photographer with a camera in the news center? Come and take a photo." Upon hearing Zhang Changyan's words, He Linhua quickly restrained his joy and all the chaotic thoughts in his mind just now disappeared. He walked up to the huge incense burner and posed. At this moment, Su Wenliang and Ping Shanhu also lit sandalwood, which was about 1 meter high, and inserted it into the incense burner. The system prompts that the automatic conversion mode is activated. The system will autonomously absorb the residual soul, which is expected to take 670 seconds. The absorption of the residual soul begins. The system prompts that if the soul is absorbed for the first time, the host may experience discomfort symptoms. Another sound of prompts appeared in He Linhua's mind, while an indescribable and inexplicable feeling appeared on him. He Linhua felt that there seemed to be countless tiny electric currents constantly striking his body, which were generated from various parts of his body and eventually entered the center of his eyebrows. Ha! He Linhua, who was struck by countless electric currents and couldn't tell whether he was happy or painful, let out a groan. Chen Tong, who was standing not far from He Linhua recording the camera, rolled his eyes and pretended to pass by He Linhua's side, whispering in He Linhua's ear, "Dude, you're amazing. Taking a photo is so thrilling. Damn it." He Linhua, enduring the feeling of indescribable happiness or pain, cast a white eye at Chen Tong. Unfortunately, Chen Tong had already walked past He Linhua and had not seen his gift at all. Mayor Su, next to the main hall is the side hall, and the mountain and sea scripture murals inside are also unique. After offering incense, Ping Shanhu reached out and pointed to the corridor leading to the side hall. Su Wenliang glanced around and raised his hand to look at his watch, clearly not wanting to stay any longer. The secretary next to Su Wenliang leaned over and said, "Mayor Su, there is an important meeting in the city this afternoon. Secretary Xiao of the Municipal Party Committee has asked you to attend." Su Wenliang nodded and looked at Ping Shanhu with a smile. "Secretary Ping, this is really unfortunate. I have a meeting this afternoon and I have to hurry back now." Ping Shan Tiger is a personal gem. Knowing that Su Wenliang didn't want to watch it anymore, he pretended to persuade him to stay and said, "Mr. Su, amidst his busy schedule, came to inspect the County of Public Security. We were very eager for him. The County Committee of Public Security has already prepared for the reception tonight, and we hope Mayor Su can appreciate it." Su Wenliang declined and said, "That's not necessary. I have something else to do tonight, so I won't come over." Ping Shanhu smiled faintly and said with a hint of flattery, "Since that's the case, Mayor Su must go to Ninggu Gate to take a photo." During the Ming and Qing dynasties, when scholars from counties under the jurisdiction of public security were rushing to take exams, they would come to Ninggu Gate to kneel and pray for high school. And anyone who has kneeled here can attend high school, so this Ninggu Gate is also known as Gaoxing Gate. Su Wenliang's eyes lit up. There was no one in the officialdom who didn't want to be promoted, nor was there anyone who wasn't superstitious. Knowing the origin of the Ninggu Gate, he naturally wouldn't let it go and said, "Let's take a picture together." Although He Linhua's whole body seemed to be connected to an electric current, his mind was very clear. Upon hearing Su Wenliang's request for photos, he was also inspired and followed suit. Although the photographer from the city newspaper also came, he had to take a few photos. If the county leaders asked him for them, he could also give an explanation. Shaking and following Su Wenliang and others to Ninggu Gate, 5 minutes had already passed. After the city and county leaders took their positions, He Linhua and the reporters from the city newspaper took several photos together, one on the left and one on the right. After taking a few photos, He Linhua felt that the angle and distance were not suitable, so he moved down another step. After He Linhua moved down a step, he suddenly felt the feeling of being electrified disappear. At the same time, the electric fluid disappeared and seemed to have taken away all the strength from He Linhua's body. He softened and collapsed on the steps, rolling down. Didi, the system prompts that you have left the automatic absorption range of residual souls, and the automatic mode is turned off. You have absorbed a total of 2036 residual souls, and after refining, you can obtain 203 yin spirit power, 20 yang spirit power, 40 gold spirit power, 50 wood spirit power, 70 water spirit power, 36 fire spirit power, 18 earth spirit power, merit point 1, karma point 2, and 12 hours and 45 minutes of refining time. The sudden sound that appeared in He Linhua's mind startled him, but as he rolled down the Ninggu Gate, it was already a fact. "Son, 70 stone steps, haven't you fallen to death yet?" Accompanied by a few screams and a piercing sensation all over his body, He Linhua's consciousness gradually blurred. When He Linhua rolled to the bottom, He Linhua was almost unconscious. At this moment, a voice faintly appeared in He Linhua's ear. "Comrade, how are you? Are you okay? Is it okay? How could it be okay?" Amidst his blurred consciousness, the scene of Lu Junwei assigning tasks in the morning suddenly appeared in He Linhua's mind. For some reason, a sentence popped out of He Linhua's mouth. "I still have a meeting at 5 p.m. this afternoon." Chapter 4. Preliminary Exploration. You are listening at novelfull.audio. He Linhua naturally didn't know that a sentence he had subconsciously uttered before he fell into a coma was actually conveyed to Su Wenliang and Ping Shanhu who came later, and he also gained unexpected benefits from this sentence. Nyowen reads novels. I don't know how long it took, but He Linhua finally woke up from his coma. However, what appeared before his eyes was not the hospital he had imagined, but the floating island he had once visited in his sleep. On the floating island, the huge and oppressive building still stands tall. He Linhua opened his eyes and looked over. The 4 words, Soul Refining Temple, were as dazzling as the scorching summer sun, making people dare not face them directly. It's this place again. What exactly is this place? He Linhua withdrew his gaze from the Soul Refining Temple and sat down on the floating island. Subsequently, He Linhua held his cheek with one hand and closed his eyes slightly, filtering out the events of the day one by one. Check in for work, clean up, play games, wait, play the game. I remember, in the game, Free Cultivation, there seems to be a ghost refining temple with this kind of appearance. However, in Free Cultivation, it is called the Ghost Refining Temple, and in his dreams, it is called the Soul Refining Temple. He Linhua quickly realized the key to the question. If this is really the ghost refining space in Free Cultivation, wouldn't I be developed? Suddenly, he thought of the various wonderful uses of the ghost refining space, and his blood couldn't help but boil. Alchemy, talismanship. If all the functions in the refining space can be preserved, it would be simply incredibly powerful. However, how could this soul refining space appear in my dream? He Linhua quickly thought about this question again. Is it that current? He Linhua quickly remembered that he had been hit by a current while wiping the mouse in the morning. Is it that this space was transmitted to his brain with that current? But This statement is also too mystical. Electric current. In my dream. He Linhua's mind briefly skipped a moment, feeling a little dazed. Suddenly, he patted his thigh and said, asterisk asterisk asterisk. This soul-refining temple has always been in my dream, and it has a ball to use. Does it make me sleep, dream, and play games every day? In other words, it seems that even in a dream, I may not be able to dream of this dream. Didi, the system prompts that you have refined a total of 2036 residual souls, which took a total of 12 hours and 45 minutes to refine. You have obtained 203 yin spiritual power, 20 yang spiritual power, 40 gold spiritual power, 50 wood spiritual power, 70 water spiritual power, 36 fire spiritual power, 18 earth spiritual power, merit point 1, and karma point 2. A timely prompt sound awakens He Linhua from his contemplation. He opens his eyes again and looks at the huge soul-refining temple above his head. He suddenly stands up and says, "You need to go in and take a look." How could you know what's going on without going in? Quickly walking into the soul-refining temple, the 9 giant statues that were originally standing inside became even clearer. He Linhua first circled around the 9 giant statues. In the game, Free Cultivation, these 9 statues were not present, and He Linhua had no idea what these 9 statues were. Among these 9 statues, the middle one is still the statue of a middle-aged man wearing a black and blue Taoist robe. Then, on the left and right sides of the statue, there are golden compassionate-eyed elders, black angry-eyed Shura, orange dangling children, white middle-aged women, green-faced men, blue handsome Taoist nuns, fiery red bearded Taoist priests, and earthy short and chubby Taoist priests, respectively. Although these 9 statues have different forms, if you look closely, you can see some resemblance from them, especially in the eyes of each statue, where words and numbers can be faintly seen. Although He Linhua's eyes are not very good and he cannot see the words and numbers clearly, as long as he focuses on looking, he can still understand the meaning of the words and numbers. After turning around, He Linhua started from the far left and touched them one by one. On the far left is the short and chubby yellow Taoist. He Linhua reached out and pressed his hand on the statue, feeling as if it flickered slightly. Subsequently, a mysterious feeling appeared in He Linhua's heart, and at the same time, a text directly appeared in He Linhua's mind. The Earth Spirit statue, a container used to store the 5 elements of Earth Spirit power in the Soul Refining Temple, currently has 19 Earth Spirit power points. In its state, the Level 1 Soul Refining Temple automatically generates 1 Earth Spirit power point per day. The host conflicts with Earth Spirit power and cannot be extracted. Earth Spiritual Power. It cannot be extracted. He Linhua let go and looked back at the eyes of the Earth Yellow statue. The information in the statue's eyes also appeared in He Linhua's mind. Tuxing, Tu Lingli 19. He Linhua closed his eyes and tried to control with his mind, extract 1 point of Tu Lingli. Then, the number of 19 in front of He Linhua jumped to 18, and a bit of earthy yellow liquid appeared in the air. Warning, there is a conflict between the host and the Earth Spirit force. Forceful extraction will cause the extracted Earth Spirit force to dissipate. Do you want to continue? No, He Linhua made a choice in his mind. At the same time, a little yellowish liquid that appeared in the air disappeared, and the number 18 jumped back to 19. So that's why, what effect would extracting and using these Earth spiritual powers have on the body? The thought had just appeared in He Linhua's mind, and a mental power immediately appeared in He Linhua's mind, answering his doubts. Extracting various spiritual powers can strengthen the body and improve cultivation. It can be used to refine talismans, elixirs, and tools. It can be used to strengthen animals, plants, and spiritual bodies outside of the host. Upon realizing that he had just raised a question, He Linhua was immediately answered. He became wary and said, "Who is talking?" The Soul Refining Temple can independently answer the host's various questions. You can speak. Do you have your own consciousness? This question exceeds the authority of the soul refining temple itself. If you answer this question, there is a 100% chance that it will cause the host to become mentally deranged. Are you sure? Sure. Sure you're a big-headed ghost? I'm not sure. This answer made He Linhua even more vigilant. He could even say the word crazy, and this soul refining temple must have self-awareness. Who is the person who made you? He Linhua thought over and finally came up with a question that should be raised in a timely manner. This question exceeds the authority of the soul refining temple itself. If answered, there is a 100% chance of causing the host to experience schizophrenia. Are you sure? I'm not sure. He Linhua was completely speechless. Mental disorder and schizophrenia didn't seem like a good thing. What is the relationship between the soul refining temple and the ghost refining temple in free cultivation? The soul refining temple extracts 100% of the main elements from the ghost refining temple and evolves from the temple itself. So, what is the relationship between you and me? He Linhua raised another question about his external relationship. The soul refining temple has a dependent and dependent relationship with the host. The soul refining temple has no authority to interfere with all the host's actions, and the host can dominate the soul refining temple. When the host dies, the soul refining temple dissipates. The soul refining temple dissipates, and the host has no influence. After asking and answering, He Linhua also gained a basic understanding of some information about the soul refining temple. The soul refining temple can condense various attributes of spiritual power by absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, refining souls, and other methods. By manipulating various attributes of spiritual power, there are also various wonderful uses. He Linhua also learned that the only thing he can extract and use now is Yin's spiritual power, which is related to He Linhua's Yin attribute body. What surprised He Linhua even more was that the soul refining temple could still be upgraded. Through conscious manipulation, it took 5 minutes for He Linhua to successfully elevate the soul refining temple to 1 level. After becoming a 2nd level soul refining temple, the yin-yang and 5 elements spiritual power in the temple attributes increased from 1 point automatically per day to 2 points. The 2nd level of the soul refining temple also officially opened, and the 9 statues became as large as 2 levels. Although he still doesn't understand whether this soul refining temple is good or bad for him, at least now, He Linhua can feel that the benefits of the soul refining temple should outweigh the drawbacks. After understanding the most basic usage method of the soul refining temple, He Linhua tried to extract some Yin spiritual power from standing under the Yin Xing statue. After injecting Yin spiritual power into his body, He Linhua suddenly felt an indescribable sense of comfort filling his entire body. At the same time, his consciousness completely detached from the soul refining temple. Just as he opened his eyes, the intense light stimulated He Linhua to close them again. Subsequently, a burst of dry howls reached He Linhua's ears. This voice is particularly familiar to He Linhua's ears, and the owner of this voice is He Linhua's uncle, Tao Tianming. Huazi, why are you so pitiful? If you can't wake up, how can I explain to your uncle and mother? If your mother knows what's going on, she won't even kill me. After listening to the first sentence, He Linhua still felt quite comfortable. After listening to the second sentence, I felt just average. After listening to the third sentence, He Linhua didn't have a strong taste in his heart. In fact, he was like a talisman in my uncle's heart. Uncle, there's nothing wrong with me. What are you howling about here? He Linhua squinted his eyes and said with a full of anger. After hearing He Linhua's voice, Tao Tianming turned his eyes to He Linhua and saw that He Linhua was still closing his eyes. He muttered, I've been hallucinating like my nephew thinks. If my nephew can't wake up, how can he explain it to my older sister? He Linhua's reaction to his uncle was a mix of tears and laughter. What's the point of hallucinating? I'm awake. Wake up. Why don't you open your eyes when you wake up? Tao Tianming saw He Linhua open his mouth to speak, but he didn't open his eyes. He immediately started howling again. Huazi. You're not blind. How can I explain to my elder sister? Blind fart. He Linhua reluctantly opened his eyes again and glared at Tao Tianming. Uncle, do you curse me? I wish I were disabled. Among all the relatives, He Linhua and Tao Tianming are the closest and accustomed to some conversations that are neither big nor small. If it were for individual relatives, He Linhua wouldn't dare to speak like that. Talking nonsense. The doctor said that if your brain is hit, it may cause symptoms such as blindness, deafness, and paralysis. Tao Tianming seemed to feel that just talking alone was not convincing enough. He magically pulled out a book from under his buttocks and pointed to the text on it, saying, "You see, it's all said here that the brain is one of the most vulnerable parts of humans, and any impact can potentially cause some illnesses. Oh, don't say anything. By the way, how long have I slept?" He Linhua changed the topic. It's been almost 2 days now. It's been over 40 hours since I brought it over at noon before. As soon as the words fell, Tao Tianming patted his thigh. By the way, the doctor said, when you wake up, let me call him immediately. As he spoke, Tao Tianming ran out of the hospital room and said, Doctor. Doctor. My nephew is awake. Come and take a look. Chapter 5. Hospitalization. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The patient's various physical signs are all normal, except for a slight bruise at the injury site. They have fully recovered and are even healthier than ordinary people. Nyowen reads novels. After examining He Linhua's physical characteristics, the doctor was very surprised and looked at He Linhua with a monster-like expression. He has always been responsible for the treatment of He Linhua, and in previous examinations, He Linhua's physical signs were not ideal. Especially in EEG waves, there may even be a short-term cessation phenomenon. At that time, he had already concluded that the patient's best condition was also vegetative. However, the situation of this examination is vastly different from previous ones. Not only did He Linhua's brain waves return to normal, but even some other basic signs that should have appeared did not appear. For example, situations such as low blood sugar and physical weakness caused by prolonged eating. Really? Can I be discharged today? He Linhua immediately made a request after listening to the doctor's words. Is it possible for someone who knows their own family affairs to not be aware of their current physical condition? Are all physical signs completely normal, even exceeding those of the average person? This must be related to the drop of Yin's spiritual power he absorbed before coming out. Now, He Linhua just wants to go home quickly and continue studying the soul-refining temple in his mind. Sir, your physical condition is very ideal, but I suggest that you stay in the hospital for observation for a period of time, which will be very beneficial to your health. Although the doctor's verbal reasons may sound grand, from the green light that constantly appears in the doctor's eyes, He Linhua can still distinguish that this doctor has a strong sense of treating him like a little white mouse. Thinking about it is the same. A person who was originally weak and may never wake up suddenly became 100 times more energetic and recovered directly. If it weren't for knowing that these two people were the same person, the doctor would really think that He Linhua's double is here now. He Linhua reached out and pulled open the blanket, wearing a hospital gown, and stretched lazily. Don't bother so much. Look at me, I'm so healthy now. Oh, my little ancestor. How did you get out of bed? You're a sick patient now. Tao Tianming became anxious when he saw He Linhua getting out of bed. He Linhua was slightly moved when he saw Tao Tianming's worried expression. He reached out and shook his arm, saying, Don't worry, uncle. Look at me, it's already fine. Don't mess around with me, will you? Lie down for me now. What are you trying to do when you're just recovering from your serious illness? Tao Tianming said, his voice changing. If you mess around with something long or short now, why don't your mother fight for me? Director Tao, although your nephew is currently in a very good condition, I suspect this is a short-term illness reaction. I suggest that he be hospitalized for observation for a period of time. The doctor seized this opportunity and adopted a roundabout tactic, starting from Tao Tianming. Tao Tianming is not a big official, just the office director of the Public Security County Cultural Center, with a senior associate degree. After listening to the doctor's words, Tao Tianming was met with lightning and said, "Are you saying that my nephew is shining again? Give me a break." He Linhua rolled his eyes, "I'm really okay now. If it's okay, you have to lie down for me. Someone will come to see you later." Tao Tianming made a hard request to He Linhua, "If you behave better this time, maybe you can become a full-time employee." Becoming a regular. He Linhua regained his composure and obediently lay back in the hospital bed. All along, Mother He's requirement for He Linhua has been to be able to blend in as a formal personnel with established positions. Now, there is a great opportunity in front of He Linhua, and of course He Linhua is honest. He Linhua lay back in bed, looking like an honest child and asked, "How can you become a full-time employee? Can you tell me?" After inviting the doctor out, Tao Tianming said, "This matter will start with the one you fell." Originally, He Linhua fell that day and his words before fainting were known by Su Wenliang and Ping Shanhu. At that time, Su Wenliang didn't know what kind of wind he had drawn, so he couldn't help but sigh. Now, there are not many comrades who work as seriously as this comrade. Comrades like this must be praised for what they deserve. The party committee and government should show more concern for such comrades. Secretary Ping, after you go down, take a look at what difficulties this comrade has in his life and work. As long as he can help solve them, he must give them a solution. Although Ping Shan Tiger knew that this might just be a last-minute initiative by Su Wenliang, he casually said. However, what superiors say is instruction, it is spirit. Although the likelihood of Su Wenliang remembering this matter in the future is not high, what if he remembers it? So, Ping Shan Tiger immediately requested Zhang Changyan to collect information about He Linhua and set off a wave of learning from comrade He Linhua throughout the county. As a result, this investigation almost choked the Ping Shan Tiger to death. It's a bit difficult for all party members and cadres in the county to learn from it. Speaking of the position, He Linhua is just a temporary worker, without even a formal establishment. When it comes to qualifications, I have only been working for 2 months and there is nothing remarkable about it. However, I am still too lazy to be anything, speaking of political components, not to mention party members, not even members of the Youth League. Do people like this still need to study throughout the county? Isn't this a joke? But can this matter be abandoned like this? Of course not. This is something that a deputy mayor has personally explained. If there is really no storm in this matter, it would be slapping Su Wenliang in the face. At present, Ping Shanhu came up with an idea. Since we cannot praise learning, let's change our perspective. Didn't Su Wenliang say that we need to solve the problems in He Linhua's life and work? Ping Shanhu immediately communicated with Zhang Changyan and made a decision. Comrade He Linhua works diligently and has a positive attitude. Such an excellent comrade should be recruited as a member of the party. It is impossible to directly join the party, and being an active member of the party is always not a problem. Also, the issue of comrade He Linhua's work organization should be resolved together. Although only Ping Shanhu and Zhang Changyan agreed on this matter, theoretically no one else would know. However, there is no impermeable wall in this world, and this decision has just been made, and the whole county basically knows. After listening to Tao Tianming's explanation, He Linhua couldn't help but laugh and cry. I really didn't expect that with this fall, so many things would happen again. Suddenly, He Linhua patted his forehead and asked anxiously, "Have you told my mother about this?" "No, how dare I say it? If I say it, your mother won't fly over and beat me to death." Tao Tianming pointed to his forehead. "Look at me like this, does your mother seem to have come before?" He Linhua nodded in agreement. His mother had already reached the highest level of her finger-flicking ability. If she knew about He Linhua's situation, Tao Tianming's forehead must be in the shape of Shakyamuni. By the way, has my mother called me these past few days? Yes, I took it all. Don't worry, I've already covered it up. Tao Tianming patted his chest, giving him a thumbs up. What did you say? He Linhua asked. Tao Tianming smiled and said, let me introduce you to someone. They went on a date and forgot about me on their phone. He Linhua stared directly at Tao Tianming. Uncle, don't you always feel bored lately and have nothing to do to cause trouble? Why don't I come to your house and discuss some issues about your old lifestyle with my aunt? Huazi. You are my own nephew. We don't want to be so deceitful. Tao Tianming was startled. If He Linhua went to his house to spread rumors, there wouldn't be a big uproar at home. He Linhua chuckled inwardly and said, Uncle, then you don't want to be such a troublemaker when you're old. I'm not being bothered to death by my mother when I come home during the Chinese New Year. My mother thinks of her grandson in such a way that she thinks of her. You're still looking for reasons to avoid it. Tao Tianming patted his head and said, let's talk about it later. You'd better call your mother first to save her worry. After a moment of thought, He Linhua realized that he should have called his family. He dialed the phone and reported safety to his family. Of course, when asked about his mother's contact, he simply blew the whistle. Hanging up the phone, both He Linhua and Tao Tianming breathed a sigh of relief. At this moment, Tao Tianming answered a phone call and answered with a response. After hanging up the phone, Tao Tianming looked at He Linhua seriously and said, you remember, Director Zhang Changyan will come to see you at 3 p.m. this afternoon. Be honest and don't cause trouble, you know. This really matters. Can you become a full-time employee? Well, I see. He Linhua nodded. By the way, it's almost noon. Can you buy me something to eat? What do you want to eat? Tao Tianming asked. He Linhua licked his lips nostalgically and said, let's start with 8 chicken cutlet mats. Chicken chops. Tao Tianming sneered, this is the recipe left by the doctor just now. What do you want to eat? Choose it yourself. He Linhua picked up the recipe left by the doctor, scratched his head with both hands, and completely collapsed. Millet congee, rice congee, soy milk, fish soup, excluding fish, etc. can only choose one, which still makes people live. He Linhua pitifully grabbed Tao Tianming's arm and said, Uncle, we don't have to deal with people like this. Look, I'm so angry now that I can kill a cow with just one punch. How could I only eat these things at noon? That must be the doctor who wrote this for revenge. Tao Tianming reached out and pushed away He Linhua's hand, saying, don't pretend to be pitiful. You haven't eaten anything for almost 2 days, and now you can only eat some liquid, non-greasy food. This is something that 3-year-old children all know. Well, you wait here, I'll go get you a bowl of fish soup. After saying this, Tao Tianming looked at He Linhua, who was feeling depressed, and left the hospital room without looking back. As soon as Tao Tianming left the ward, He Linhua's dejected expression disappeared. He raised 100 yuan bill in his hand and said, I knew this would happen long ago. Fortunately, I'm smart. I touched your bill first. If you don't buy it for me, I'll go out and eat it myself. Chapter 6. Attempts. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Wearing a hospital gown, He Linhua leisurely strolled around without paying any attention to the curious gazes of those around him. No one reads novels. Although the snow around was still piling up, He Linhua didn't feel any coldness at all. Walking to the snack street near the hospital, He Linhua first drank a bowl of pig soup and offered sacrifices to the 5 organs temple. Then I went to the Yanqing fried chicken restaurant again and bought 10 chicken chops in one go. After all, this money is not my own, so I don't feel any pain spending it. As for the body, Under the nourishment of that drop of Yin's spiritual power, He Linhua's various bodily functions had already returned to their peak state, without any concern that his stomach would not be able to bear it. After buying the chicken chops, He Linhua leisurely returned to the hospital room. It had been over half an hour and the clock was pointing towards 1 p.m., but Tao Tianming had not returned yet. He Linhua lay on the hospital bed, nibbling on chicken chops while waiting for Tao Tianming to come back. After more than 10 minutes, Tao Tianming finally returned, holding a rice cooker in his hand. As soon as he entered the ward, Tao Tianming saw chicken bones scattered all over the bedside table. He then looked at He Linhua, holding a piece of chicken chops in his hand, eating them deliciously. Tao Tianming's face immediately turned black and he said, "You kid, didn't the doctor tell you? You can't eat greasy food now, you just won't listen. You're not afraid of eating so much meat and getting your stomach hurt." He Linhua's rebuke towards Tao Tianming seemed unheard of. He magically took out a piece of chicken cutlet from the hospital bed and threw it to Tao Tianming, saying, "Uncle, it takes you an hour to make a fish soup. If I wait for your fish soup, I'll starve to death." After a pause, He Linhua took the rice from Tao Tianming's hand and asked, "Is this fish freshly caught?" What does that mean?" Tao Tianming is not sure why. He Linhua chuckled and said, "Can't it take an hour?" Poor mouth. Tao Tianming reached out and patted He Linhua's head, then his face turned black again. "You kid, did you touch my pocket again just now? Why did I lose 100 yuan? After drinking the fish soup brought by Tao Tianming, He Linhua dared not eat the chicken ribs hidden in the bed anymore. He closed his eyes and tried to enter the spirit refining temple. When he was unconscious, He Linhua had already learned from the spirit refining temple that entering the temple did not necessarily mean falling asleep or fainting. As long as he silently recited, "Enter the spirit refining temple," his consciousness would naturally enter the temple. After entering the soul refining temple, He Linhua immediately walked up to the Yin Xing statue and reached out to press on it. At the same time, He Linhua's mind flashed, and the information about the statue had already appeared in his mind. Yin Xing currently has 184 points of Yin spiritual power that can be extracted. When the temple was upgraded from level 1 to level 2, a total of 20 points of Yin spiritual power were consumed, leaving 184 points of Yin spiritual power remaining. According to the introduction in the temple, He Linhua can only extract Yin spiritual power and strengthen his body through Yin spiritual power. Although He Linhua has tried to extract and absorb Yin spiritual power, he did not feel the improvement of his own strength. After absorbing Yin spiritual power twice, He Linhua's hunger was relieved. Now, in He Linhua's heart, the most prominent function of this Yin spiritual power is to fill his stomach, dispelling all the chaotic thoughts in his mind. He Linhua concentrated his mind and tried to extract a bit of Yin spiritual power, then induced Yin spiritual power into his body. At the same time, He Linhua immediately withdrew from the soul refining temple and focused on feeling the condition of his body in reality. In He Linhua's sense, as this Yin spiritual power entered his body, his whole body seemed to be full of power, as if waving it casually now could produce the kind of tearing sensation in movies. Moreover, He Linhua seemed to feel that something was flowing in his body. Flowing. He Linhua keenly noticed an abnormality in his body. This kind of flow seems to be similar to the internal power mentioned in the novel. Could it be that these so-called Yin spiritual powers can actually be used as internal power? The idea appeared in his heart, and He Linhua immediately began the experiment. His thoughts attached to the spiritual power flowing in his body, and then guided the spiritual power to transform into shapes, sometimes into circles, sometimes into lines, and turning back and forth in the left palm. However, the duration of this spiritual power was not long, and in about less than 5 minutes, this Yin spiritual power disappeared completely. However, after 5 minutes of trying, He Linhua seemed to also feel that the palm that had just been nourished by that spiritual power seemed to have undergone some kind of change. He Linhua slightly moved his left wrist, grabbed and extended his palm twice, feeling that his left hand seemed to be much more flexible than before. Could it be that my left hand has been successfully strengthened? The thought flashed through his mind, and He Linhua thought of giving it a try. His eyes scanned around him, and finally landed in the fruit tray on the bedside table. A small knife for peeling fruits was placed there. He Linhua reached out and picked up the fruit knife, gestured twice towards the palm, and then gently moved it on the palm. A painful sensation immediately hit He Linhua's nerves, and at the same time, a stream of fresh blood flowed out along the marks He Linhua had just scratched. The sun. It doesn't work at all. Didn't it say that it will strengthen the body? It's a waste of Yin spiritual power, it's useless. Hua. Hua Zi. What are you doing? Tao Tianming was startled by He Linhua's self-harm and quickly snatched the fruit knife from He Linhua's hand. At the same time, a bad idea came to Tao Tianming's mind. Could it be that my nephew was hit and developed a self-harming mental illness? Doctor. Doctor. Come and take a look. My Huazi is crazy. Thinking of this possibility, Tao Tianming immediately shouted at the door, Sister. How can I explain this to you? Huazi has a mental illness. Neurotic. He Linhua looked at Tao Tianming with tears and laughter, then thought about his previous actions. No matter who saw him self-harm, they would think that this person had a problem. Uncle, stop shouting, I'm fine. He Linhua thought as he looked at his left palm. In theory, wasting a bit of Yin spiritual power should not have no effect. Just as He Linhua was pondering, something unexpected happened to him. The left palm, which had originally been scratched with a slight wound, began to experience a constant tingling sensation. A warm water-like substance enveloped the injured area of the palm. In just 1 minute, the wound in He Linhua's palm had completely healed. With a gentle brush, all the blood scabs on the palm fell off, and there were no visible signs of injury on the smooth surface of the palm. Can the parts nourished by Yin spiritual power have an automatic healing effect? After discovering one of the great benefits of Yin spiritual power, He Linhua felt very good. However, He Linhua was not satisfied with only understanding the role of Yin spiritual power. Ignoring Tao Tianming, who looked like a clown next to him, He Linhua closed his eyes again and entered the soul-refining temple, extracting a little Yin spiritual power once again. At the same time, He Linhua controlled the Yin spiritual power to gradually enter the right index finger, and then let the Yin spiritual power cover the entire first finger joint of the right index finger. The attending doctor of He Linhua was originally interested in He Linhua, a small white mouse that could recover quickly. Upon hearing the call, he immediately rushed to the hospital room. Director Tao, what is the patient's condition? The doctor came in and saw He Linhua lying in bed with his eyes tightly closed, carefully asking. Tao Tianming immediately said, Doctor. My nephew has a mental illness. He definitely has a mental illness. Tao Tianming said, waving his fruit knife in front of the doctor. Just now, my nephew took this knife and cut his left palm. Doctor, do you think my nephew's brain was hit and his nerves are a bit abnormal? The doctor's face turned pale as he dodged Tao Tianming's waving fruit knife, glared at him fiercely, and then said, I can't rule out this possibility. After all, the brain is the most mysterious area of human beings, and any situation is normal. As he spoke, the doctor looked at He Linhua again. However, when he saw that both palms of He Linhua were facing upwards and there were no wounds, the doctor immediately turned his gaze to Tao Tianming and said, Director Tao, are you sure that your nephew cut a wound on his palm? That's for sure. I saw it with my own eyes. Tao Tianming looked at He Linhua's palm again, suddenly surprised. He Linhua's palm was clean, and there was no other wound. Director Tao, you may be too tired. I suggest you go to the psychiatric department to see a doctor now. The doctor gave Tao Tianming a piece of advice, and then reluctantly looked at the precious case of He Linhua and walked out of the room. What I just saw is really true. Tao Tianming looked at the fruit knife in his hand and thought to himself, am I really too tired? After the doctor left, He Linhua opened his eyes again. This time, the duration of this Yin spiritual power has been extended to 9 minutes. It seems that the duration of Yin spiritual power should be related to the size of the enveloped position. He Linhua reached out and pinched his right index finger. Although there is no difference in the tactile sensation of his index finger, He Linhua can still feel that there should be some changes in his right index finger. Thinking of this, He Linhua extended his right index finger and picked up an apple with his left hand, gently exerting force. With just a pop sound, my right index finger easily poked in without any pain. Is it possible to have a similar strengthening effect as long as the scope of Yin spiritual power is reduced? He Linhua gently poked the bedside table again, and a very obvious dent immediately appeared on the bedside table. Puff. Huazi, are you feeling a bit uncomfortable? If you're feeling unwell, just tell your uncle not to harm yourself. Look, there's such a big mark on the bedside table, how painful your fingers should be. Tao Tianming didn't see any external injuries this time, and felt a little calm. He Linhua glanced at Tao Tianming again, pondering in his mind what use this finger could have. Hand poke a brick. Poking glass. Isn't this the same effect as street entertainment? Punk the tempered window of the bank with your finger and then rob it. Isn't this brain damaged? After thinking for a while, He Linhua didn't come up with any good ideas, but instead had a bunch of messy ideas. Thinking about it, He Linhua's mind became increasingly lascivious. If we earn Yin spiritual power from that thing, can we become a golden spear that won't fall? Tao Tianming looked at the unintentional smirk on He Linhua's face and shuddered in his heart. Huazi, you're not really foolish. He Linhua speechlessly cast a white eye at the uncle who interrupted his lustful thoughts. After 2 experiments, although He Linhua also achieved some results, he was not satisfied. However, the hospital is not a suitable place for conducting experiments, so it's better to wait until you return to your residence before conducting the experiment. Thinking of this, He Linhua stopped trying and instead took out a chicken cutlet from his bed and continued to nibble on it. How many chicken chops are there in your bed? Tao Tianming looked at He Linhua's eating behavior and was very speechless. Chapter 7. Superman in less than a day. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. At 3 p.m., a condolence group led by Zhang Changyan, a member of the Standing Committee of the County Party Committee and Director of the County Party Committee Office, came to offer condolences. Nyowen reads novels. During the condolence, Zhang Changyan tightly grasped He Linhua's greasy hand and said with emotion, Comrade Xiaohe is a good comrade. If there are any difficulties in life and work in the future, you can report to the County Party Committee and government. For a comrade like Xiaohe who works seriously and responsibly, the party and government will definitely help him solve any work and life worries. Qin Jianhe, the director of the news center following Zhang Changyan, immediately stated that giving He Linhua a long vacation, when will he recover from his injuries and start working again? After shaking hands, Zhang Changyan immediately took out a tissue and wiped his hands clean. He was very puzzled and said, why is all the oil in this kid's hands? When Zhang Changyan's condolences came to an end and he left in the future, He Linhua stood up and wanted to see him off. He finally understood where the greasiness came from. In a corner of the blanket, Zhang Changyan vaguely saw a large plastic bag with 2 grilled golden chicken ribs inside. At 5 p.m., after various requests from He Linhua and even raising the hospital bed with both hands to show complete recovery, the hospital finally agreed to He Linhua's discharge request. When He Linhua left the hospital, his attending doctor watched him leave with tears in his eyes. What a classic case of rapid recovery. It just made him walk out of the hospital alive. After leaving the hospital, He Linhua did not return to his rental room, but was taken to the Tao family by Tao Tianming. The reason is that He Linhua has just recovered and needs to be taken care of. That night, after dinner, He Linhua first entered Tao Tianming's study, opened his computer, and logged into the game, Free Cultivation of Immortals. However, although He Linhua entered the game, he was reminded that there was an error in the game data. Although the Free Cultivation Immortal web game was successfully logged in, the screen was blank. Subsequently, He Linhua logged into one of his small accounts again, and the small account logged in smoothly without any problems. After this experiment, He Linhua also breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. At least, now it can be confirmed that the Soul Refining Temple did indeed originate from the Ghost Refining Temple in Free Cultivation, and the voice that had always appeared in his mind did not deceive him. After coming out of the study, He Linhua plunged into the guest room and studied the wonderful use of spiritual power. He Linhua once again turned his gaze to his right index finger. Although a preliminary experiment was conducted on the right index finger in the afternoon, it did not achieve the desired effect for He Linhua himself. This time, He Linhua took out a small knife from his pocket and tried to scratch the tip of his right index finger. No pain. The small knife passed by, but He Linhua didn't feel any pain at all. Instead, he felt a tingling sensation. Seeing that his index finger was fine, He Linhua couldn't help but want to test the limits that his index finger can withstand. So, He Linhua once again used a small knife to cut his index finger, but this time his strength was slightly stronger. No pain. No pain. No pain. After more than 10 explorations by He Linhua, his index finger finally cut through the skin with all his strength. But the wound was too small to wait for He Linhua to react. The cut skin had already healed automatically. With the blessing of spiritual power, the healing speed of He Linhua's wound is more than 10,000 times higher than that of ordinary people. Your sister. Is this too powerful? After exploring his current index finger strength, He Linhua's animal blood boiled. It only used a little spiritual power to nourish a fingertip. If you let spiritual power nourish your whole body, then even if you encounter gunfire and bullets, you don't have to be afraid. As long as he is given enough time and spiritual power, he can completely arm himself into an Iron Man. Thinking of a bright future, He Linhua was extremely excited. Continue. We need to continue strengthening our bodies. Brother wants to be a Superman of China. Lying in bed, He Linhua pretended to be asleep and began to extract spiritual power from the Spirit Refining Temple to strengthen our bodies unconsciously. A night passed. That night, He Linhua spent a total of 63 drops of spiritual power, comprehensively strengthening his palms. During the strengthening process, He Linhua also experimented with dumbbells placed in the guest room. Now, He Linhua's hands are unparalleled in strength, and with a forceful squeeze, he can leave a few shallow fingerprints on the dumbbell. This skill is incomparable even to a world champion. In a daze, He Linhua seemed to see that Fate's naughty girl was scratching her head and making gestures at him in the morning. He Linhua had breakfast and hurried out to test his overnight achievements. Not far from Tao Tianming's house is a small park. Although it is a winter morning, there are also some elderly people exercising. He Linhua carefully avoided those grandparents and nestled in the corner of the small park. Looking around, there are pine trees, rockeries, and railings. After thinking for a moment, He Linhua set his sights on the chaotic rockery. Sweeping away the snow on the rockery, He Linhua reached out his right hand and slapped it hard on the rockery. With a loud bang, the rock that was hit by He Linhua shattered and fell to the ground with a loud crash. My day. Brother, this is even more powerful than the Buddha's palm. He Linhua exclaimed excitedly as he watched the consequences of his palm. He then slapped the exposed rockery stones one after another, but in no time, the rockery stones were shattered in half by He Linhua. When He Linhua realized that he wanted to pause, less than half of the rockery that had previously covered an area of more than 20 square meters was left. If this were seen by the park administrator, He Linhua would be in big trouble. Looking at the achievements he had made, and then secretly looking around, He Linhua wiped the sweat off his head and quickly fled to the nearby small forest. After entering the small forest and ensuring the safety of the surroundings, He Linhua began to test his strength on the trees again, and printed a large palm print on all the trees around him. After struggling for almost half an hour, He Linhua was finally satisfied. After looking around at the disorganized forests, I proudly thought to myself, can I also be considered a Superman in China? Before leaving the small forest, He Linhua remembered his finger power again. With his strengthened finger, he poked a hole in these small trees, but didn't he? Thinking of this, He Linhua also had the intention to give it a try. I saw He Linhua aiming at his right index finger and then forcefully poking it down. There was a scream in the small forest, which was indescribable. He Linhua held his right index finger in his left hand and blew hard. The skin of his first index finger was completely scratched, and his nails were shattered in half. However, the tree remained motionless, not to mention the hole poked by the finger, not even the skin was intact. Unable to bear the intense pain in his right index finger, He Linhua closed his eyes and extracted a bit of Yin's spiritual power from the soul refining temple from his fingertips, which acted on He Linhua's right index finger. After about a minute, He Linhua's right index finger finally recovered, and even the broken nails were replaced by new nails that had grown out again. After his fingers were fine, He Linhua cursed and said, "Let me wipe it. What's wrong with this? I'm a Chinese Superman, and I was so proud that my fingers were pierced by a small tree." He looked at the small tree in front of him with no damage to its fur. He Linhua turned his eyes and thought to himself, is this book a legendary iron tree? The tree that can gently block my finger is really precious. Thinking of this, He Linhua's eyes lit up. If it were really a precious tree, then he wouldn't have even started. But, judging from the appearance of this tree, it's no different from other trees. After much thought, He Linhua decided to personally test it with his palm. If this tree were really a treasure tree, he should be able to hit it with his palm as well. Thinking of this, He Linhua reached out his left hand and exerted 5/10 of his force, patting towards the small tree. With a thud, the entire middle of the small tree collapsed, forming a strange palm shape. This tree can't stop it. He Linhua was surprised in his heart, and with a disbelieving tap, the tree broke apart from the middle and fell to the ground. What's going on? He Linhua was completely lost, and he tried to lightly poke the small tree with his right index finger. A small hole easily appeared on the tree body. He Linhua changed his finger and poked another small hole. The first thrust would hurt, but now it doesn't hurt. Strange, what's going on? Touching the finger again, suddenly a flash of inspiration flashed in He Linhua's mind. This finger has just been infused with spiritual power, should it be considered strengthened again? Wait, shouldn't it? There is actually a time limit for this body strengthening. Will the strengthening effect disappear completely after a period of time? So, all the fuss that night was just to be Superman for a short while. Thinking of this possibility, He Linhua no longer had the same sense of joy as before. If he really could only be this brief Superman, no one would be happy. Feeling somewhat disappointed, he returned to Tao Tianming's house and lay down on the sofa in the living room. He Linhua began to ponder. If the duration of spiritual power was really only that short, what would be enough of this time? As time passed by bit, He Linhua also kept an eye on the changes in his hands. Starting from noon, the special abilities in He Linhua's hands began to gradually disappear. By nightfall in the afternoon, He Linhua's palms had completely returned to their original state, with no special features left. Can this spiritual power really only work in a short period of time? He Linhua recalled everything in the soul refining temple. It seems to be introduced in the soul refining temple that the body can be continuously strengthened through spiritual power, but why can a strengthened body only function for less than a day? Soul refining temple. Ghost refining temple. Free cultivation of immortals. A flash of spiritual light flashed in He Linhua's mind. Since the soul refining temple has been separated from a cultivation game, is it possible that the spiritual power in this soul refining temple must be effectively utilized through cultivation techniques? This viewpoint appeared in his mind, and He Linhua immediately rejected it himself. Cultivation techniques. What are you joking about? Where are there any immortals in this world? Let yourself find the cultivation method. Isn't this a myth? Cultivating immortals. Nourishing oneself. Qigong. Qigong. In this world, although there is no cultivation method for immortality, there are many methods for cultivating Qigong. Among other things, there are many ways to search on the internet. Even the so-called internal skills secret scripts such as Tendon Changing Classic, the 9-Yang Manual and Sunflower Scripture are all available. Even if those things cannot be believed, at least something can be inferred from them. Thinking of these, He Linhua can no longer sit still. At Tao Tianming's house, it is impossible for He Linhua to stay up all night online. If you want to figure out these things at night, you must go home. Uncle, Aunt, I won't be here today. I'll go back to my place first. He Linhua didn't care whether Tao Tianming agreed or not, so he dropped this sentence and left directly. Hey! You child! Be careful on the road. I heard that there was a pervert in our community who smashed the small forest and rockeries in the park all morning. You need to be careful. If you see any strange people, you should quickly avoid them. Tao Tianming saw that He Linhua had already descended the stairs and no longer stopped him. He just chased out and urged him. He Linhua stumbled upon hearing. Rockery. A small forest. Abnormal. Isn't that just talking about me? Chapter 8. Qigong Method. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On the way back, He Linhua packed a rice porridge and 4 steamed buns in the snack street and hurried back to the rental house. Nyowen reads novels. Entering the door, He Linhua quickly opened the computer and browsed information online while eating. The things on the internet are muddled and messy, and there is really enough junk information among them. Unconsciously, 3 hours have passed, and He Linhua has also gained some understanding of Qigong. Qigong was originally a Taoist technique for nourishing the body, and if you want to learn it, you naturally need to learn the most authentic one. After searching for Qigong learning, a lot of messy things appeared on the internet. Such as, 1,000 yuan for 3 hours, Mount Taishan Qigong Training Center, Shaolin Tendon Changing Classic, Learn Qigong to be a good man, and so on. It is extremely difficult to screen out formal cultivation methods from so many miscellaneous information. After much thought, He Linhua still entered Qigong and filtered through it. Although Qigong may be a bit chaotic, it at least indicated some trustworthy Qigong websites. One by one, he clicked and selected various messages. If he found them useful, he clicked to save them. Unconsciously, He Linhua had already collected more than 20 video websites. Feeling that the number of searches was almost complete, He Linhua temporarily stopped searching, stood up and stretched lazily, wasting a little spiritual power to boost his spirits, and then continued browsing information. After several rounds of screening, He Linhua finally selected 3 Qigong videos, all of which were guided by domestic Qigong masters. He Linhua even saw the technique of empty-handed crushing stones in them. Although I don't know if this technique is true or false, the introduction to Qigong cultivation methods is very detailed. He Linhua watched these 3 videos while downloading. After another 3 hours, He Linhua finally finished watching all 3 videos and carefully took notes to watch them. I looked at the time, but it was already over 3 o'clock in the evening. From these 3 videos, He Linhua summarized all the commonalities. The aspects of pulse meditation and breathing proposed by the 3 schools are completely the same, and the time for cultivation is also completely the same, except for some differences in the posture and thoughts of practice. According to the 3 schools of thought, they all believe that different postures and thoughts play an important role in absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, opening up the body's key points and meridians. Absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. In He Linhua's view, the main problem that troubles him now is not the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, but the specific cultivation methods. Subsequently, He Linhua cleared up some things he didn't need to know and left behind a Qigong video that fully guided beginners. After carefully watching the Qigong learning video several times and taking note of the key techniques and acupoints, it was already 5 o'clock in the morning. He Linhua felt a bit tired from not sleeping for 2 consecutive days. Although due to the influence of Yin's spiritual power, He Linhua's body did not feel any fatigue, the fatigue from his brain still drove him to sleep first. Goose feathers and heavy snow continue to fall, making this white county town even more beautiful. Since the beginning of December, there has been almost no uninterrupted snow, making the smell of winter even stronger. Approaching noon, He Linhua sat in a small restaurant not far from his residence, waiting to serve his meal. His mind was constantly reminiscing about the Qigong knowledge he had seen last night, and he was cleaning up these knowledge over and over again. It's strange to say that since obtaining the soul-refining temple, He Linhua's mind seemed to have improved a lot. Although he had seen a lot last night, he still hasn't forgotten anything. After thinking over and over again, the focus of Qigong cultivation has gradually become apparent, with just 2 words. Tong Mai. As long as the meridians are connected, the body's true qi, true element, and heaven and earth spiritual energy can be connected through the already connected meridians, ultimately achieving the super effect of nurturing true qi and true element with heaven and earth spiritual energy, and using true qi and true element to stimulate heaven and earth spiritual energy. For He Linhua, it doesn't seem to be very difficult to connect the meridians. He is different from other practitioners of Qigong. He doesn't need to prepare to communicate with heaven and earth, nor does he need to position himself to activate the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. His spiritual energy comes entirely from the soul-refining temple. As long as he understands the most essential requirements and simplest cultivation methods of Qigong, he only needs to move the spiritual energy to the dantian and specific meridians and acupoints, and then connect the meridians. Of course, the so-called use of spiritual energy to connect meridians here is not just a feeling of qi in the ordinary sense. The so-called sense of qi refers to the ability to feel spiritual energy entering the meridians, and there is still a big gap from fully understanding the meridians. Truly opening up meridians, even if it's just opening up one acupoint or meridian, can be said to be different from ordinary people. For others, unblocking meridians is extremely difficult. Is it so simple for me? He Linhua pondered carefully, still feeling that this Qigong cultivation was a bit too simple. So simple that it was a bit false. Reporter He, this is your beef lammy and noodles. I haven't seen you in the past 2 days. The restaurant owner gave the noodles to He Linhua, politely. He Linhua smiled and replied, I have something to do these past few days and haven't come over. Oh, the restaurant owner responded and entered the kitchen again. He Linhua shook his head and smiled when he saw the beef lammy and noodles in front of him. He is really looking for trouble. You know, a few days ago, he was a poor citizen struggling for this bowl of beef lammy and noodles, but now he has become so extraordinary. Why bother? It's just a try. It's best to succeed naturally. If it doesn't work, he can continue to search for other ways. At the very least, to restore his original life as a commoner. After eating beef lammy and noodles in a hurry, He Linhua returned to his residence. After turning on the computer and watching the organized Qigong video again, and confirming its accuracy, He Linhua immediately followed the methods in the Qigong cultivation method, sat cross-legged, and began to try. In the cultivation of Qigong, the 12 meridians of the human body belong to the naturally connected meridians. If the 12 meridians cannot be connected, it belongs to innate deficiency and will inevitably cause defects in a certain aspect of the body. For example, congenital heart disease, polio and other diseases are caused by the inability of the 12 meridians to connect. Therefore, in the cultivation of Qigong, the focus is placed on the naturally unconnected 8 meridians of the extraordinary scriptures. The so-called 8 extraordinary meridians refer to the Governor Meridian, Ren Meridian, Chom Meridian, Dai Meridian, Yin Wei Meridian, Yang Wei Meridian, Yin Qiao Meridian, and Yang Qiao Meridian. The 8 extraordinary meridians are distributed throughout the body, and to connect one meridian, it is necessary to open the acupoints in each meridian. The acupoints in the meridians are the places where qi and blood accumulate, as well as the places where qi and blood intersect. The saying goes that if acupoints are connected, all the meridians will be connected, which is the truth. There is no distinction between the order of opening up the 8 extraordinary meridians, but generally speaking, the Governor Meridian and the Ren Meridian are the 2 most easily connected acupoints. In order to reduce difficulty, He Linhua designated the Ren Meridian as his first Qigong cultivation meridian. Starting from the lower abdomen, exiting the perineum below, passing through acupoints such as Guan Yuan upwards along the abdomen, then circling the lips upwards and entering the eye socket, forming a cycle. There are 24 main acupoints in the Ren Meridian. Although He Linhua is eager to cultivate, he also knows the principle that haste makes waste. So, He Linhua did not rush forward, but first extracted 1 point of Yin spiritual power from the soul refining temple, and wanted to be guided by the power of intention and chanting, walking along the entire route of the Ren Meridian. Guiding Yin spiritual power to travel along the route of the Ren Meridian is easy to say, but it is extremely difficult to actually implement. He Linhua guided Yin spiritual power to travel along the Ren Meridian. Yin spiritual power only passed through 2 or 3 acupoints, and the spiritual energy was consumed completely. The entire process took only half a minute. If it is really said, it is as if there is a force in the meridians and acupoints constantly sucking and devouring spiritual energy. Although somewhat surprised, He Linhua was not discouraged. Instead, he extracted 2 points of spiritual energy again and continued to move along the Ren Meridian. The amount of spiritual energy that can be extracted at once is related to the level of the soul refining temple. When He Linhua didn't care, he raised the level of the temple to level 2, and now he can extract 2 points of spiritual energy at once. However, the duration of these 2 points of spiritual energy support was not long, only 1 minute passed, and the 2 points of spiritual energy were once again exhausted, only passing through 5 acupoints. With monotonous extraction of spiritual power and guidance, after spending 10 minutes and 11 points of spiritual power, He Linhua finally successfully guided the Yin spiritual energy through the Ren Meridian. At the same time as completing the exercise, He Linhua felt an indescribable sense of comfort enveloping his whole body, and his pores all over his body generously shed slightly black blood stains. He Linhua closed his eyes and sensed that in his consciousness, the Ren Meridian that had just passed through seemed to have become much smoother, and the previously curved and rugged meridian path had become much more regular. After feeling the significant changes in his body and Ren Meridian, He Linhua fully realized the benefits of spiritual power surrounding the Ren Meridian. After a brief rest, He Linhua was not busy clearing the meridians, but once again guided 2 spiritual powers to circulate around the Ren Meridian. About 20 minutes later, this second spiritual power run also ended, but this time only consumed 5 spiritual power points. Once again, after being washed by spiritual energy, the Ren Meridian became more uniform and resilient, and a lot of blood and water appeared on He Linhua's body. He Linhua is not in a hurry to clear the meridians, but continues to exercise spiritual power. Once, twice, 3 times unconsciously, He Linhua has guided spiritual power along the Ren Meridian for 13 cycles. As the number of spiritual power runs increases, the amount of spiritual power lost in each run gradually decreases, especially in the last 2 runs, where He Linhua only used a little spiritual power and ran 2 laps. After 13 spiritual exercises, He Linhua also paused his cultivation and took a brief rest. Unlike before the spiritual power exercise, although He Linhua now has a foul odor on his body, his spirit is very good. After 13 washes of spiritual power, the Ren Meridian in He Linhua's body is exceptionally resilient, and the pulse width and recovery speed have also been greatly improved. He Linhua is now confident in successfully unblocking the Ren Meridian. Moreover, through this attempt, He Linhua has also determined that his current Qigong cultivation method is indeed finding the right path, which can be felt from the degree of spiritual power consumption. He Linhua has previously experimented with the effect of 1-point spiritual power on the body for only 10 minutes at most, and during the last spiritual power run, 1-point spiritual power actually rotated along the meridians twice for a whole hour, which was absolutely impossible in the past. After half an hour, He Linhua changed into clean clothes and crossed his legs again. This time, his goal is to open up the Ren pulse. Chapter 9. Connecting the Ren Meridian. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Before practicing, He Linhua first entered the soul refining temple and checked the amount of Yin spiritual power. Excluding the 32 points of Yin spiritual power consumed in the afternoon, plus the daily automatic increase of Yin spiritual power, there were still 96 points of Yin spiritual power left in the soul refining space. Although I don't know if the quantity of Yin spiritual power is sufficient, the urgent cultivation intention made He Linhua want to try it immediately. With a calm mind, He Linhua took a deep breath and then extracted the first acupoint, Qingjiang, from the soul refining temple. 2 points of Yin spiritual power entered the Qingjiang acupoint and immediately began to roll restlessly. The small gathering place of qi and blood was completely unable to trap these 2 points of spiritual power. Of course, He Linhua will not allow these 2 spiritual powers to move freely, but guide them to continuously expand in the Ren Meridian. With the continuous expansion and collision of the 2 spiritual powers, the slender Qingjiang acupoint continued to expand, carrying the meridians constantly breaking and repairing. At this moment, He Linhua finally experienced the true pain of opening up the meridians. In Qingjiang's cave, sometimes it feels like being roasted, sometimes it feels like freezing, sometimes it feels like being cut by a knife, sometimes it feels like being bitten by ants. Although this kind of pain is not very intense, it is still quite satisfying for He Linhua. You should know that the suffering He Linhua is currently experiencing is still the result he achieved after unconsciously expanding the Ren Meridian 13 times. If He Linhua had not engaged in spiritual power operation and had directly connected the Ren Meridian, although he could have succeeded in the end, the suffering he would have suffered would have been self-evident. After about 5 minutes, the various pains in the Ren Meridian gradually weakened, and the Qingjiang acupoint also reached its maximum under the influence of spiritual power. He Linhua also knew that the Qingjiang acupoint had been opened. As He Linhua's mind relaxed, the remaining spiritual power was like a wild horse that had run free, blowing away and dragging away decay, which greatly enlarged the meridians between Qingjiang acupoint and Lianquan acupoint. After repairing the meridians, those spiritual powers were also depleted. Only one acupoint was opened, and He Linhua's forehead was already covered in cold sweat. He reached out and wiped away the cold sweat from his forehead. He Linhua calmed down and extracted 2 spiritual powers again, which were infused into Lianquan acupoint. The greater the suffering he suffered, the greater the achievements he made. While enduring the pain, He Linhua also began to look forward to the benefits he could gain after successfully unblocking the Ren Meridian. Lianquan acupoint, Jiantu acupoint, Xuanji acupoint, Huagai acupoint. Time passed by minute by second, and the previously locked acupoints were opened one after another. 8 hours have passed in the blink of an eye, and He Linhua has unknowingly reached the last acupoint, the Huiyin acupoint. With the experience of unblocking the first 23 acupoints such as Lianquan and Tiantu, He Linhua originally thought that unblocking the Huiyin acupoint should be as simple as the first 23 acupoints. However, when he truly began to open up the Huiyin acupoint, He Linhua understood the difficulties. The Huiyin acupoint seemed like an bottomless pit, constantly devouring the spiritual power extracted by He Linhua from the soul refining temple. In a short time, He Linhua had already infused 20 points of spiritual power into the Huiyin acupoint, but it was still expanding. As He Linhua controlled the two spiritual powers inside the Huiyin acupoint, he cursed in his heart, "What's going on here? One acupoint has swallowed 20 spiritual powers, but it hasn't been fully opened yet. Why is it so difficult to open the Huiyin acupoint?" Of course, He Linhua didn't know that when a meridian wants to open all the acupoint openings, the last crucial point is the last acupoint. The key to whether each meridian is truly connected lies in being able to communicate with heaven and earth. To achieve comprehensive connection between meridians and heaven and earth, it is necessary to fill the spiritual energy inside the meridians. In fact, it is not important what the last acupoint is. As long as the spiritual energy fills the meridians, when the second to last acupoint is opened, the filled spiritual energy of heaven and earth will naturally open the last acupoint and connect the entire meridian. However, in today's society, at the end of the earth's legal era, the spiritual energy between heaven and earth has become so low that it can only maintain the circulation of the earth itself. It is extremely difficult for practitioners to extract spiritual energy from it. There are very few people who can truly store spiritual power and connect meridians on their own. Those who cultivate through hard work and connect the first meridian, if there are no adventures, the youngest are all above the age of 40. He Linhua only spent a day and a night complaining from the beginning of his cultivation until he was about to open up the Ren meridian. If those people knew about it, they would probably have to curse her. After extracting 2 points of spiritual power again and infusing it into the Huiyin acupoint, He Linhua also noticed something unusual in his meridians. The meridians before the originally empty Huiyin acupoint were actually full of spiritual power. As the last 2 points of spiritual power are infused, they are also infused into the meridians before He Linhua's Huiyin acupoint at the fastest speed. However, in just a few seconds, all the meridians and acupoints before the Huiyin acupoint were filled, and at the same time, the excess spiritual power rushed into the Huiyin acupoint with lightning speed. Under the impact of spiritual power, the Huiyin acupoint continued to grow in an instant. The acupoint of the perineum was opened. At the moment when the Huiyin acupoint was opened, the holy power originally accumulated in He Linhua's Ren meridian formed a violent airflow, which instantly broke He Linhua's pants, bedding, wooden bed. At the same time, an equally powerful holy power was mobilized from the holy power of the heaven and earth, entered from the Qingjiang acupoint, poured into Ren meridian, and led into the elixir field. Qingjiang acupoint enters, Huiyin acupoint exits, and Dantian becomes a transit station for heaven and earth spiritual power and Ren meridian spiritual power. Finally, He Linhua's first meridian was connected, forming a spiritual cycle between heaven and earth. In a continuous spiritual cycle, spiritual energy continuously surged out of He Linhua's clothes and pants, and He Linhua's clothes and pants were also torn apart one by one. In the overflow of spiritual power, everything next to the bed in He Linhua's room was not spared. The cycle of heaven and earth is endless. When the spiritual energy cycle reached its 9th cycle, the spiritual energy in He Linhua's body finally calmed down and flowed gradually into the lower abdomen's dantian along the meridians. The originally narrow dantian expanded like a balloon after the spiritual energy flowed in, eventually forming a sea of spiritual mist. After closing his eyes and feeling the current sensation in his body, He Linhua just opened his eyes. Everything he saw in front of him left He Linhua speechless. Sunday. I sun, your sister. Sunday stars. I'm trying to recruit thieves. What's the mess in the room? He Linhua stood up, wanting to see what was going on, but his head hit the roof directly. Damn it. This. What's going on? His head made an intimate contact with the roof. He Linhua first felt angry, then inexplicable, and then ecstatic. He had just jumped unintentionally and ended up hitting the roof. He Linhua fell to the ground, reached out to support the ground, wanting to get up. As a result, there was only a creak, and looking at the ground, a brick had already been pressed in half by He Linhua. After He Linhua stood up and took a step forward, there was another creak sound, and another brick was stepped on in half. Knowing that his destructive power was astonishing now, He Linhua immediately tiptoed up. Although he has used his strength very lightly now, it will still cause some accidental injuries. Upon seeing the appearance of the room, He Linhua pondered for a moment and understood what was going on. When he had just connected the Ren Meridian, due to his excessive strength, he had actually made the house look like this, and there was not a single piece of clothing left on his body. After understanding the situation, He Linhua first thought of cleaning his body. Although he is now shining brightly and unable to see anything dirty, he is actually extremely dirty and smelly. The room rented by He Linhua does not have a bathroom, and it is now 3:30 in the middle of the night. It would be strange if he ran out without being taken to the detention center by the patrolling police uncle. You should know that the security in the county is not good, and anyone who walks on the street in the middle of the night is usually detained. He Linhua couldn't go out to take a shower, so he had to search for water in the room. Looking for the kettle and bucket, He Linhua looked at the basin of bottom water that he had finally collected and was speechless. Saying, why didn't he have it when he wanted to use water? With just this little water, I guess I just got the towel wet and there was nothing left. Pushing open the window, the nauseating smell emanated from the room. Seeing the constantly drifting snow in the sky, He Linhua's mind flashed with a wicked thought. 10 minutes later, He Linhua returned to the room naked and wiped it with a towel. Done. By the way, the feeling of taking a snow bath is really good. Although He Linhua's body was dirty and smelly, it was not difficult to clean. After wiping it with snow twice, the smell was almost wiped away. As for the temperature, with He Linhua's current physique, he doesn't feel anything cold at all. Subsequently, He Linhua tiptoed around and began to tidy up the room. Firstly, there were fragments of clothing flying everywhere. Secondly, there was the debris that accidentally got stuck in various parts of the body and was excreted. Finally, He Linhua looked at the large hole on the bed that had been impacted by spiritual power, speechless. How could this mattress with holes and the bedboard with holes easily give rise to some kind of bad thoughts? At 6 o'clock in the morning, under the diligent work of He Linhua, the room was finally tidied up. But there was also a loss in this tidying up. In just 2 hours, He Linhua smashed 2 wash basins, broke 2 brooms, scraped 8 pieces of glass, out of a total of 8 in the room, and smashed 2 pieces of wall coverings. Looking at the results of his 2 hours of hard work, He Linhua really had a hint of wanting to cry without tears. After putting on his clothes, He Linhua carefully walked out of the door. Although he was not using force anymore, there was still a faint handprint left on the door handle. Now, He Linhua also realized the disadvantage of becoming stronger, which is that it is too easy to damage things. Although our strength has become stronger now, if it continues like this. He Linhua thought for a moment and shivered. If he keeps tinkering like this, there won't be much of this inexplicable mess he has made. If it were at someone else's house, no way. We must exercise immediately and strive to master this strength as soon as possible. He Linhua made up his mind, but forgot to control his strength. He stepped down and made a particularly deep footprint in the snow. He Linhua looked at the footprints and sweated uncontrollably. By the time the snow melted, these footprints must have been imprinted in bricks. Chapter 10. Fitness Clubs. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At 6 o'clock in the morning, snowflakes were still falling, but the breakfast vendors in the snack street had already started a day of hard work. Nyowen reads novels. He Linhua carefully went to a kanji shed, ordered a bowl of millet porridge, asked for 4 deep-fried dough sticks, and then sat down on a stool. With a creak and a bang, accompanied by 2 mournful screams, the stool fulfilled its glorious mission of life and bravely sacrificed itself. The stool was broken, and the owner's extremely unfriendly gaze fell on He Linhua. He Linhua awkwardly smiled, patted his buttocks, stood up, and then gently sat down on a different stool. Soon, the landlady brought rice porridge and deep-fried dough sticks. He Linhua first took a mouthful of millet porridge, then reached into the chopsticks cage and took a pair of chopsticks. He clamped the deep-fried dough sticks and made a crunch. Under He Linhua's violence, the deep-fried dough sticks broke into 2 sections and the chopsticks broke into 4 sections. The landlady turned her head again and looked at He Linhua. He Linhua threw down the broken chopsticks, took out another pair, continued to clamp deep-fried dough sticks, and with a crunch, another pair of chopsticks died. Bravely looking at the extremely unkind expression of the landlady, He Linhua swallowed hard, then stretched out his evil little hand and grabbed the deep-fried dough sticks. Deep-fried dough sticks were broken under He Linhua's command. He Linhua looked at the sticky clay on his hands and completely collapsed. Well, I won't eat deep-fried dough sticks anymore. I'll take a kanji and leave immediately. He Linhua decided to take up the bowl. The bowl just touched his mouth. He heard the sound of jam, and the bowl broke in half, and Xiaomi kanji spilled all over the table. He Linhua silently placed the broken bowl on the table and said sorrowfully, "Boss, pay the bill." He Linhua completely gave up the idea of eating breakfast when he failed to eat breakfast in the kanji shed. He just wants to find a place to quickly get used to his current strength. Suddenly, He Linhua remembered the large amusement park near the county town. There are many sports and fitness equipment in that large amusement park, perhaps you can gradually adapt to it there. With this idea in mind, He Linhua ran lightly all the way to the public security park. Fortunately, there aren't many people in the county town yet, otherwise if someone saw them, they would definitely think they had encountered a ghost. They haven't heard of any normal person walking with a float. At the security park, He Linhua began his exercise plan. The pedal equipment broke after being pedaled 5 times, arm strength equipment, used it for a while, it's broken, prone lying equipment, used it for a while, it's broken. However, in just 2 minutes, all the fitness equipment in the security park died under the clutches of He Linhua. He Linhua, who was particularly speechless about his current performance, lay directly on the snow. I used to be annoyed when I didn't have the ability, but now that I've become so powerful, I still feel annoyed. Turning his head to glance at the messy fitness equipment next to him, He Linhua's heart was filled with malice as he said, "Can I just go over and smash the city wall? Can a fart go down and smash a hole in the ground?" After lying on the snow for an hour, the sky finally brightened up and some people appeared in the park. Those who wake up early and have nothing to do have already pointed at the position where He Linhua is lying, and some have already concluded that He Linhua died tragically last night, which is a corpse. Even more exaggerated is that someone actually hit 120. Not long after, an ambulance unexpectedly appeared next to the amusement park, with 3 white coats carrying stretchers and running towards them. Get it? He Linhua saw that if he didn't get up again, there was a possibility of being taken to the hospital for emergency treatment, so he stood up slowly and walked lightly to the side. Ah! He's actually still alive. There was an indescribable disappointment in this person's voice, as if He Linhua had some deep hatred towards him. I think he must have been heartbroken. Look at the way he walks, his gaze, and the fitness equipment he has damaged next to him. I think it should be a hangover. Most likely a drug addict. Just as He Linhua walked out not too far, his phone rang. Taking out his phone from his pocket and lightly pressing the answer button, He Linhua spoke up and said, "Hello, please call me a destructive maniac." Huazi. You haven't woken up yet. What nonsense are you talking about? Tao Tianming's voice came from across. I woke up early and am currently at the public security park. What's up, uncle? He Linhua replied. Public security park. Why are you there? I heard that someone vandalized public property in the public security park this morning and ultimately committed suicide. You won't be watching the excitement there anymore. Come back quickly and don't let anything unclean catch up. Puff. Cough cough. He Linhua exclaimed, how long has it been? The whole county has heard about him lying on the snow and packing his body. The gossip heart of the people in the security county is great. However, he certainly wouldn't be kind enough to tell Tao Tianming that the vandalist and male corpse was He Linhua. I understand, uncle, I'll go back in a moment. Well, come back quickly. As soon as I heard about this, I didn't know what happened, so I thought of you. I'll give you a call soon, and I'll be at ease knowing you're okay. He Linhua was completely speechless. Why hadn't he noticed it before? Tao Tianming surprisingly has such a strong sense of premonition. Suddenly, He Linhua remembered his uncontrollable strength and tentatively asked, Uncle, you are quite familiar with the security county town. Do you know where there is a good place to exercise strength in our county town? Exercise strength. Why are you asking this? With that, I really know there's such a place. However, how did you think of exercising strength with your numb stick? It's nothing, I think I should exercise my body, He Linhua replied. Tao Tianming didn't ask deeply, but spoke confidently, there is an extraordinary fitness club in our county, which is a good place to go. If you want to go, come and find me. I'll give you a body card and you can play for 10 hours for free. Okay, then wait for me, I'll go right over. He Linhua hurriedly bid farewell to Tao Tianming's fitness card from his home and rushed to the Extraordinary Fitness Club. The Extraordinary Fitness Club is located in the northern section of the county town, and the location is not prominent. From the 80% new signs outside the Extraordinary Fitness Center, it can be seen that the opening time of this fitness center is not long. Entering the gym, He Linhua displayed his membership card. After swiping the card, the waiter led me to a large fitness room. In the large fitness room, apart from a few servers cleaning up, there was not a single guest. Of course, except for He Linhua, who came here to exercise before 8 o'clock in the morning when they were full and had nothing to support themselves. He Linhua is still here for the first time and doesn't understand how to use these instruments. After thinking about it, He Linhua waved to the waiter and asked, what is the most awesome exercise equipment here? The waitress looked at He Linhua's numb figure with excessive drug use and suggested with a smile, Sir, if you want to exercise, it's not that the stronger you are, the more you can exercise. I suggest you test your strength on a force meter first, and then we can help you develop the most reasonable fitness plan. Oh. I see. He Linhua nodded clearly, where is the instrument for testing strength? The waitress politely led He Linhua to 2 force measuring instruments and said, Sir, the one on the left is for testing your arm strength, and the one on the right is for testing your leg strength. After a pause, the waitress said again, as long as you can break any of these 2 force measuring instruments, you can get a completely free fitness service until someone breaks your record again. Ah. Really? He Linhua listened and his eyes lit up. Just now, he saw on the wall that if he wanted to play here for an hour, he would have to pay 50 yuan. With He Linhua's current salary, even if he threw all of it inside, it would only be enough for him to play for 30 hours. If free exercise could be provided here, that would be great. Then I'll start now. He Linhua finished speaking, vigorously waving his arm and then hitting the force gauge with all his might. 1,087 pounds. Congratulations on breaking the arm strength record of the Extraordinary Fitness Club. Seeing the results achieved by He Linhua, the female waitress who had been following him struggled to swallow her saliva. 1,087 pounds. How could this be possible? Converting to the kilogram system requires a force of approximately 500 kilograms. Such a strong force, if it hits a person, not dying is also a serious disability. Looking at He Linhua's slender figure, and then at his fist strength of 1,087 pounds in front of him, the waiter immediately made the most reasonable choice. I'm sorry, sir. The fist strength tester is already broken and under repair. Could you please test your leg strength first? All right. He Linhua didn't feel annoyed when he saw the waiter not believing him. Actually, he quite understands this waitress standing in front of the force gauge for testing leg strength. He Linhua kicked his leg with a flying kick. 1,387 pounds. Congratulations on breaking the leg strength record at the Extraordinary Fitness Club. Qigong. The waitress swallowed her saliva again with difficulty. Sir, the arm strength tester and leg strength tester may be broken. Can you go to the side for some basic training first? It's broken. I think it shouldn't be bad. If you don't believe it, you can try smashing it yourself. He Linhua didn't have the heart to joke when he saw the waitress say this. The waitress was very obedient and cooperated by forcefully smashing the force gauge. 134 pounds. Normal. After seeing the waitress punch him, He Linhua's playful thoughts revived. He waved his left hand a few times and then quickly hit the force gauge 4 times in a row. 890 pounds. 854 pounds. 882 pounds. 921 pounds. Subsequently, He Linhua swung his left fist twice in the air, then roared and struck with all his might. 1,135 pounds. Congratulations on breaking the arm strength record of the Extraordinary Fitness Club. The waitress was completely stunned. Which is the most awesome exercise equipment here? He Linhua asked again with a smile. The waitress awkwardly extended her finger to the innermost instrument. Thank you. He Linhua thanked him and then ran to exercise. Ah! Everyone, come and take a look. We have monsters at our gym. After a while, the little sister's screams echoed throughout the entire gym. He Linhua, who was getting used to it at the very beginning, rolled his eyes at the waiter's words and said, I'm really ignorant, isn't it just breaking a record? What's the big deal? He Linhua had no idea how terrifying the record he had broken was.